I'd like to welcome our presenter today. We're so happy to have Ashley Gatewood back from CFRE International. Welcome, Ashley. It's wonderful to have you back presenting for us today.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to return.
Awesome. So I think we can go ahead and kick things off.
All right, great. So my name's Ashley, as Marina mentioned, and I am based in Baltimore in the US. I have over 10 years in the nonprofit sector between the US and New Zealand. And my personal fun fact is that I'm trying to go to 100 countries, which is obviously a little tricky in the era of COVID, but I will keep trying. So thank you so much for being here today. I am here to give you an overview of the CFRE certification, but really this is as much a dialogue as we could possibly have kind of in this webinar format. Please do submit your questions. They're very important to me. I want to make sure that you have all the information that you need to feel confident and ready to begin your CFRE journey, if that is the direction that you decide to go. So the CFRE's main difference from other certifications is that we are the only globally recognized accredited certification for fundraising professionals. So whether you work in Vancouver and let's say your job takes you to Washington, D.C. in the future, or you end up in Sydney, the certification means the same thing no matter which country you are working in. There are currently over 7,500 CFREs worldwide with 1,100, I want to say it's not too far off 1,200 at the moment, CFREs in Canada. Per capita, Canada has the most CFREs, so which is fabulous. It is very well recognized. We have some data that I'll get to in a second about how it does benefit folks in North America, and obviously including Canada. So if you are working in Canada, the CFRE has great power behind it for you. The CFRE process is twofold. The first is the application and the second is the exam. And I will go through both of those in more detail today. A lot of people say, Ashley, I have been fundraising for X number of years. I'm meeting my targets. I have good relationships. Doing the CFRE just feels like some work that maybe I don't have to do. And while it may be true that you have a fabulous body of knowledge and you're excelling in your role, there are still benefits that go along with holding your CFRE. And we did a survey, this is from 2018, we're going to run it again this year, about the benefits that current CFREs had experienced as a result of their certification. 83% told us that it had a positive impact on their earning potential. 90% said that it provided enhanced professional opportunities. I've heard anecdotally multiple times from individuals that when their organization is hiring and they're receiving resumes, that they will create essentially one virtual pile of CFRE resumes and then a second pile of non-CFREs, and that they will begin their interview process through the CFRE pile. So that's something to keep in mind as more and more organizations do seek CFREs, especially for higher level leadership positions. Obviously if you hire a not so hot fundraising coordinator, it's not great, but if you hire a not so great director of development, there's a lot more on the line. So people hiring love the assurance that CFRE has demonstrated their know-how of best practice fundraising. And 92% of folks told us that it increased on-the-job confidence. So one thing I really want to stress to you today is that the CFRE is an investment that comes back to you over time. I think people think, oh, I have to pay an application fee and I have to study and prep for this exam, and it's kind of just this sunk cost. But the reality of it is that AFP's compensation and benefits report for a number of years has found that CFREs earn more than non-CFREs. So this data is North American, and it just came out within the last few months that found that CFREs earn 7 to 15% more than non-CFREs with a comparable number of years of experience. So that's incredibly important if you are looking to bump up your pay, if you are looking to pursue more competitive salaries, having the CFRE is a great tool. I'll go over here 5 reasons to become a CFRE, and this is what we frequently hear from people, was that they wanted to demonstrate their fundraising knowledge. Everyone will say, oh, I know fundraising, I'm a good fundraiser, but what is that proof in the pudding? So having your CFRE is that evidence that you have demonstrated your fundraising knowledge to us as a third party. People want to improve their fundraising knowledge. I think it's really common, especially as people become more specialized, that they narrow in on an area of fundraising and perhaps lose touch or never had the opportunity to work on different areas within the sphere of fundraising. The more you know about fundraising, the more valuable an asset you are to your organization. There's no downside to you knowing more and feeling more confident. Boosting earning potential, that's another heavy reason why people come here, especially folks who feel like maybe they didn't negotiate well in their current role, or they're in a salary hole from not having negotiated well some years back. This can be a really good way to get on top of that. And career advancement, right? You want to move forward, you need to stand out from the pack. So Marina is now going to launch our first poll, and we are asking, have you started a CFRE application?
Wonderful, Ashley. So I've got that up on the screen now, and we just encourage everyone to take a moment to vote. You just click right on your screen there, so yes or no. Great. So, okay, I'm just going to give it another moment just to make sure we get the majority of folks have a chance to get their vote in. Great. So I'm going to close and share this, Ashley, so that everyone can see. So we have 11% have started and 89% have not started.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that information. Okay, all right. Well, if you are in the 89% of people who haven't yet had a chance to start your application, if you look at your screen right now, you will see that there are 2 spots on our homepage that you can visit to begin your application. It is completely free to begin. You only pay if you decide to submit it. Our application has 3 main areas, and I'll walk you through each of them now. It is a points-based application, and I'll dig into what that means a little bit more in a second here. But for education, you need to have earned 80 points within the last 5 years. And the majority of the application is looking at what you've done in the last 5 years. So that is essentially that your fundraising experience and the fundraising education that you've embarked on is recent. So you're probably thinking, Ashley, 80 points, that's great, but what exactly is a point? Well, this is how you earn points. Through attending or presenting fundraising education is a main way, and I'll go through a few different avenues for earning your points today, but it's very straightforward. You earn 1 point per hour that you're in a fundraising session. If you ever present, you earn 2 points per hour. And the first time you present new material, you will earn 3 points per hour. If you don't present, that's completely fine. That's not a requirement, but it is a way that you can earn points more quickly. And every session must be at least 45 minutes long to qualify, which really comes into play when you go to a conference and they have those little 25-minute fast sessions. They just don't have enough meat on them for qualifying for this. So do just keep that in mind. We can also accept some non-fundraising education. It must be relevant, though, to your job. And I stress relevant. We have had people submit chocolate making classes, yoga for fundraisers, and those sound fabulous, but we cannot draw a line between them and your fundraising practice, right? So We're looking for things like leadership courses, management courses, that would be considered relevant. When you are telling us how long you attended something, there are a few things that you need to subtract out. And this is important because if you want to count a conference or a master class, something that has breaks, you will need to subtract out the time from those breaks. So for instance, if you go to a conference, that's one day and it runs 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., people think, oh, wow, I got 7 hours. But we have to subtract things out that are not fundraising education. So that would include breaks and meals, networking time, receptions, right? Like having a glass of wine with the exhibitors in the exhibit hall. It's a good time, but we can't award 1 point for doing that for an hour, right? And any session that you missed. We recommend that you keep a copy of your event agendas, and that will make it easier to determine how many hours you participated in that education. If you're thinking, oh no, I went to a conference in 2019 and I know it was worth some points, but I don't have a copy of the agenda, don't be shy about asking the event organizer. They get these questions all the time from people pursuing their CFRE. Another way that you can earn points is via any academic degrees you may have. If you don't have an academic degree, that's completely fine. But if you do have academic degrees, you will earn points through them. And you can see on your screen here that we award 10 points for a bachelor's, master's, PhD, or JD, and 5 points for an associate's degree. I mentioned, we're looking back at what you've done in the last 5 years. So the education that we just looked at, whether that's your fundraising education or your non-fundraising education, only what happened in the last 5 years qualifies, right? So from 2016 onwards right now is what we're looking at. Your academic degree can be from any year and any major. So if you have a bachelor's in French from 1999, that is worth 10 points. If you have a master's degree in computer science from 2014, that's going to count for those 10 points. And we can take up to 40 points for your degrees. So if you have 9 PhDs, I'm incredibly impressed, but unfortunately we have to cap everything out at 40 points. Another common way to earn those points is through service learning, and that's really just our term for volunteering. You can earn up to 10 points. Again, we're going back 5 years, and you will earn 1 point per year per organization that you volunteer with. And that's just as a regular volunteer. If you serve on a committee or a board for an organization, you can earn 2 points per year. And faith-based organizations, your place of worship, those qualify if that's a place where you're volunteering. The same thing with your children's school, that can also count as well. All right, so oftentimes at this point, people think, well, there's all kinds of education out there. What exactly counts and what doesn't count? And you can see on your screen here, we've got a list of what counts. The fourth item is audio video recordings of conferences. I want to call that one out because if you are looking to get a heavy number of CFRE points in a short period of time, you may want to consider registering for conferences that provide the recordings afterwards. That can be a fabulous way to get a high number of points off of one registration, right? Because in my personal life, I'm incredibly frugal, so I'm always looking for that savings angle. So if you're like me, that can be a really good avenue. Free fundraising events count, right? So if there's a free fundraising webinar that you attend, I'm aware, there's a conference coming up at the end of this month that's free, things like that that are fundraising related, even if they're free, they will count too. And we're hearing from a lot of people that with COVID and so many things being online, they're actually finding it pretty easy to get education points. I'm not going to run through our entire application on this webinar, but I do want to show you how to enter in a conference because this is something that's probably relevant to everyone. On your screen, I have it set up for the 2019 AFP Icon Conference. And if you take a look, you will see where there's a drop-down box and you simply select conference, very straightforward. The name of the session box is where you're going to actually type the name of the conference. When you attend a conference, we do not need to know every session you attended at that conference. We just need to know the name of the conference. And where it says presenter, you will just type in various. Again, we do not need the name of every presenter, because if you went to a session with 4 panelists, that would just get pretty unwieldy, right? So that's what we're looking for, is the name of the conference. You're going to put in name of session, and then where it says presenter, you will put various. All right, so with that, we are at our first question break. And Marina, have we had any questions come in?
We have. So I want to start, Ashley, with you mentioned the points for university and college, and we just had somebody asking if a college diploma counts, as I think you had it listed as an associate at the 5-point level. Is that correct?
So if it is something along the lines of what in Canada would be equivalent to a community college, so it's a 2-year degree, then that is where you would earn the 5 points. If you were on a certificate program, that could count as well, but I would just ask that you check with our certification team, because there's so many different certificates out there over various lengths of time. I just don't want to give you wrong information for your specific case.
Oh, that's super helpful. And a question about volunteering. So just, you know, again, confirming. So if someone was just volunteering with 3 different organizations, not at a board level, that would mean that they'd be able to count each one of those organizations as a point and get 3 points for the year?
Exactly. Yep. So there's a maximum of 10 points for volunteering. So, you know, if they were doing that for the last 4 years with 3 organizations, they would top out at 10. But absolutely, if it's been 1 year with 3 organizations, you're absolutely correct. You would earn 1 point for each of those organizations.
Wonderful. And how many years back can you go for volunteer and board involvement?
5 years. So 2016 until now. And I do need to stress, because we go back 5 years, that means that on January 1 of 2022, anything you've done in 2016 will be out of date. So if you have conferences, volunteering, things like that that you want to count from 2016, I would recommend that you submit your application before the year finishes.
Okay, that makes good sense. And finally, how do you know if an event is going to count? Like, does it have to be advertised as being accredited, or can you submit any event that you think is relevant?
So any fundraising event is going to be fine, more than likely. I mean, I can't really picture a scenario where something fundraising related would not qualify. But if you have a question, you know, something that maybe seems a little bit blurry, always contact our certification team. But really, we see that most nonprofit space items will qualify, right? Because even if you did a 1-hour webinar about nonprofit marketing, that ties into fundraising, right? Because you have to have a strong brand to be able to fundraise well. So most of these things we find in the nonprofit ecosystem work out.
Perfect, great. So I think we will end questions there, Ashley. Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, and we're going to scoot into our second poll, which asks, how long have you been professionally fundraising?
Sorry about that, Ashley. Let me just get that started here.
No worries.
Great, so it's on the screen now. So if everyone wants to just go ahead and once again, just give us your vote right on the screen. So we have 0 to 3 years, 4 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 15 years, and more than 15 years. So we'll just, again, give a moment here for everyone to get their say recorded and have a chance to vote. Fantastic. So I'm going to just close and share this, Ashley. So it looks like the majority at 59% are at 0 to 3 years. Next up, we have 15% in the 4 to 5 years and 12% in the 6 to 10 years. And then we have 8%, 11 to 15, and 7% more than 15.
All right, excellent. Well, for everybody who is in the 0 to 3 year space, I want to encourage you that really now is an amazing time to start your CFRE application. It's always a good time to start it, but we have a requirement, which I'm going to get into in this slide, where you need to have worked in a paid professional fundraising role for 36 months in the last 5 years. If you don't have that, that is completely fine, because what you can do is begin your application now. And as you are attending education, as you're staying in your role and you are having those months pass, right? A lot of people do that so that when they hit that 36-month mark, they're ready to hit submit. Obviously, if you have, we saw we had some people with over 15 years experience, so those folks are probably going to be able to put a check right next to the box for professional practice of having worked 36 months in the last 5 years. 1 month equals 1 point. So again, I said this was a points-based application system. You need 36 points, 36 months, easy peasy, right? And if you work full-time, at least 50% of your job must be fundraising related. If you're in a smaller shop and you wear the PR hat half of the time and you wear the fundraising hat half the time, that's completely fine. We understand a lot of people don't have a role that is 100% fundraising. The third section of our application is professional performance. And this is you raising funds, right? This is your performance as a fundraiser. And you need to have earned 55 points within the last 5 years. Now, our points requirement is that 1 point equals 25,000 US dollars. And I often get the question, well, why is this US dollars? And the reason is we are accredited. Our accrediting body only allows us to measure in one currency. So we're not allowed to have one currency for Thai baht and one amount for New Zealand dollars and one amount for pound sterling, right? We're only permitted to have one. Inside the application, there is a currency converter. So it will make this math really easy for you. We allow you to report your fundraising dollars raised in a very straightforward, easy manner. But I do want to point out 2 things. One is that for a fundraising event, you're going to report the gross. And if you have secured a grant, you can count that as well. So if you're with a smaller shop, because sometimes people say, well, my, our annual operating budget is pretty small, right? We're just not going to be able to bring in that amount of money, which over 5 years, that works out to be 1.375 million US dollars. We do have a way that you can earn points through management and communications projects. So if you're in a smaller shop, that should not keep you from being able to pursue your CFRE. Each project is worth 5 points, and they need to have a start and an end date, right? Just like if you hit send on your e-newsletter every week, that's not a project. A project is something like overhauling your e-newsletter, completely redesigning it, testing it, finding out that it's increasing donations 18%, right? That's a project. And we have a lot of examples on our website that are actual ones that folks have submitted. We've scrubbed the identifying information, but that will give you a really good flavor for what kinds of projects qualify. I have 2 really hot tips in this presentation, and this is my first one. We probably have somebody call our office maybe once a week in tears over this, so don't let that be you. Storing your documentation is really important. Your documentation that you will want to keep is your registration confirmation emails or your receipts, and that's how you would demonstrate your participation in an event, right? So keep soft copies in your personal email, have a CFRE proof folder, and just forward everything there. We have people calling us upset because they say, oh my gosh, I just left my job last week and I realized all my CFRE proof is in an Outlook folder or an Outlook inbox that I cannot access anymore. So just make sure you keep it someplace that it will always be accessible to you. For your hard copies, you can store them at home if you want. So the cost for initial certification through CFRE is $700 US if you are a member of a participating organization. Our participating organizations include AFP, the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, the Association for Healthcare Philanthropy. We have a full list on our website, but if you are a member of one of those, there's about 30 participating organizations, you will enjoy this discounted rate. If you are not a member of a participating organization, the rate is $875 US. And as we said before, you start your application for free. You only pay when you decide to submit it. So there's no cost to get started at all. What does that application fee include? Well, that includes us reviewing your application, and if for some reason something's incomplete, something's incorrect, and we send it back to you, you will not have to pay to resubmit your application. So don't worry about that. We also provide you with a digital badge. You may have seen these, they're really popular on LinkedIn. When people become a CFRE, they post it to their profile, and that is how they announce to their network that they're a CFRE. So that comes from us and is included in that fee. All testing fees are also included. So when you sit for your exam, you're not going to be asked to pay anything, right? It's all included in that fee. And it also includes us printing and mailing the hard copy of your certificate. All right, so now we will move into our second question break. Have we had any more questions come in, Marina?
Yes, Ashley, we do. So going back to the education section for the points per degree, we just had a question about whether you get your 10 points per degree. So if someone has a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, do they get 10 points for each of those? Or
correct.
They do.
Each one is worth 10 points, yep.
Perfect. And the other question that we have that's come in is from a volunteer fundraiser. So they're not employed as a fundraiser, but they've been volunteer fundraising for quite some time. Are they eligible to apply, or is this only for people that are on staff?
It is only for people who are paid professional fundraisers, yes. So unfortunately, volunteer fundraising does not qualify.
Great. And we have one more question about the submitting your application. When you submit your application, do you submit it with all the proof of your for the points, or does that come later, or how does that work?
Excellent question. So you do not need to submit any of the proof at the time that you submit your application. The accrediting body, ANSI, that we're accredited with, they require us to audit 10% of all applications. And so it's bang on every 10th one that comes in. If you are audited, then you will be asked for that information. And at that point, someone from our certification team will work one-on-one with you to ensure that you have everything that you need.
Perfect. All right. I think we're good to continue on, Ashley.
Okay, great. All right, so the CFRE exam, a lot of people have anxiety about this, and I hope that I can allay your fears, and that the exam itself and the feeling of taking it won't stop you from pursuing your CFRE. The CFRE exam is offered in 4 test windows every year, which you can see on your screen. And the first date of every test window is a deadline. For instance, if you wanted to take your exam in the October 1 to November 30th test window, the last day that you can submit your application for that test window is October 1. We do not offer the exam in December, but every other month of the year does have available dates. And once you submit your exam, don't submit it on October 1 and want to take your exam on October 2nd, because we need a few business days to review your application, and then we'll send you the instructions on scheduling your exam once it's approved. All right, so you will select your test window in the application. So you will commit to your test window before you submit. And there's a US $35 fee to change test windows. So we do that because we really want to prevent people from trying to keep pushing them out. You want to become a CFRE, we want you to become a CFRE. And so, we hope that you will stick to the test window that you originally selected. If you become unwell due to COVID and you are unable to sit for your exam on the original date, we will waive that fee for you completely. So that's no problem at all. And then you have up to 1 year to sit for your exam. So if you submit it today, which is September 9th, right? And that means that you would have until September 8th of next year to sit for the exam. All right, so what does the exam cover? It covers these 6 main knowledge domains, and you will note on your screen that securing the gift and relationship building make up 49% of the exam. So that's really where you want to focus your study time, absolutely. Obviously, all of it is important, but that is what is making up the bulk of this exam. I realize that these are really high level, right? To just say current prospective donor research, it's a very high level topic. So we have a test content outline on our website. And this breaks down the nitty gritty for you of what exactly we are looking for within each of those 6 knowledge domains. My recommendation is to print this off our website, grab a highlighter and highlight every item that you don't feel that you could confidently answer a test question on. And then that will help guide you to know where you should focus your study time. We have a resource reading list that you can use to determine the books that you want to select for studying. We have 14 books on the list, but don't worry, you don't have to read 14 books. Most people just read 1 to 3. And they are reading to address the gaps in their fundraising knowledge, right? They're not reading about topics that they already feel they know backwards and forwards. And as a result of that, we find that most people who have at least 5 years experience in fundraising study about 40 hours. If you have fewer than 5 years of experience, we highly recommend that you intend to study for at least 80 hours. If you're like me and you're very frugal and you want to save some money on the process, a lot of times new CFREs will be very willing to let you borrow the books that they used. We've had people ask their employer to purchase the books, and they've had good success with that. Or if you decide to be part of a study group, you may want to divide and conquer with other people in your study group about who purchases what books. And I'm going to show you this hack. This is available on Amazon Canada. And this is the Achieving Excellence in Fundraising book. This is a comprehensive text, and this is my second hot tip. This book addresses all 6 knowledge domains, and many people use only this book to study. It is often available for free as an audiobook with an Audible account trial. So if you want to get this information and you don't want to pay for it, you may want to go this avenue of getting access to the audiobook at no cost. I have 2 resources that CFRE offers that I will discuss with you now. You do not have to use these. They are completely optional, so please don't feel like they are a requirement. The first one is our Exam Compass Study Guide, and this is really good for people that find it difficult to create and stick to a study plan. So if that's you, you may want to look at this. It's US $49.99. It does have sample questions and spaces for you to reflect on what your current comfort level is with various aspects of the test content outline. We also offer a practice exam. This is online and it has a bank of 100 questions. None of the questions on the practice exam are on the live exam. So they are really there for you to answer them, and then it will show you everything that you got incorrect, so you will know what to study to. And that's $59.95 US for a 30-day unlimited subscription, so you can use as much as you like, or $99.95 US for a 90-day subscription. A lot of people ask, well, what is the exam like? They feel very nervous about it, and we'll go through it together, and I hope that you feel better about it. And if you do feel nervous, this will demystify it. It's global, so whether you take it in Ottawa or you take it in Miami, it's all the same exam, and it's fully computer-based. There are no country-specific questions. We're not going to ask you any questions about the US, how things are done in Europe, Cambodian gift receipting, there's nothing like that. There's nothing that's country specific on it. It's written at the 5-year practice level, which is why I said if you have fewer than 5 years of fundraising experience, you're going to want to plan to study for 80 hours. And it's 200 multiple choice questions. The correct answer is staring back at you on the screen, right? So you're going to pick the best answer out of the 4 answer options for each of those 200 questions. You will have 4 hours to sit for the exam. However, last year, the average length of time that it took people to complete the exam was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So there's a very good chance that it will take you less time. Every question on the exam is going to tie back to something on the test content outline. So there should be nothing coming at you from left field. Nothing should feel foreign or surprising. All right, let's see if my computer wants to cooperate here. You can move backwards and forwards inside the exam. That's awesome, right? Because that means if you get to the end and you want to check your work, you can just go back and check any questions that you want to. The other thing is, let's say you get really hung up on question 58, the question 111 jogs your memory. You can just pop on back to question 58. So you've got great flexibility to move backwards and forwards. The score range is 200 to 800 with 500 as the pass mark. So you will need a minimum score of 500 to pass the exam. And we have information about how the exam is scored on our website. All right, let's look at a sample question here. So this is not on the live exam, but this will give you a sense of what kinds of questions we're asking and what we mean by best practice fundraising. The question asks, when a donor wishes to make a planned gift/bequest to the endowment fund, the fundraising officer should first, 1, offer to contact the donor's financial organization and advisor. 2, explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with the gift. 3, identify and share with the donor the organization's future needs. 4, introduce the donor to various planned giving options. So I'll give you a few seconds to think on that. All right, everybody have their answer in mind? And the correct response is number 2, to explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with their gift. All right. Now for the exam, you have 2 options for how to take it. One is you can take it from your home or office. The second is you can go in person to a test center. If you decide to go, oh, this got a little cut off here. If you decide to go the test center avenue, it's super easy. You just go to pearsonview.com/CFRE, type in your postal code. So I've done it here for London, Ontario, and it will populate a list on the left of all of the test centers in your area, as well as a map so you can see precisely where they are. Once you finish the exam, within 1 business day, you're going to get an email from us just confirming that everything went fine, you got your results. And within 12 to 48 hours, you're going to receive your score. So in the past, it used to be immediate. Now it is not immediate. So there will be a bit of a lag. It's usually 12 hours. Within 1 week, we're going to send you that digital badge that I talked about. And we mail the hard copies of the certificates monthly from our office in Virginia, which is near Washington, D.C. So if you sit for the exam on a Monday, you pass it, it's not necessarily that your certificate hits the mail on Tuesday. There will be a bit of a lag because we mail them in batches. I often get questions about, well, what happens if I'm not successful on the exam? And people get very worried about this. Try not to psych yourself out, and please do think positively. There is a 30-day wait period if you're unsuccessful. So you're going to have to wait 30 days at a minimum before you can try again. There's a $375 US retake fee. And I was at a conference once and a guy said to me, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. I have to pay $700 US for the initial app and $375 to retake the exam. And I said, well, the thing is, if you study properly the first time, you won't have to worry about retaking the exam. Like I said before, you want to become a CFRE. We want to help you become a CFRE. We strongly believe there should be more CFREs out there. So hopefully the retake fee is a really great motivator to study very thoroughly and the first time. There is a maximum of 3 attempts on one application. So if you are unsuccessful 3 times, which this is very, very rare, but you would need to start a second application. And like I said, just do a really good job studying that first time and you won't have to worry. The CFRE does require recertification. And this is one major reason why CFREs can command a higher salary and have more options open to them on the job hunt, because your knowledge is current. You're recertifying every 3 years. We have people practicing today that earned their CFRE in 1984. So if they had never recertified, right, it would be kind of like, oh, their knowledge might be stuck in 1984 and the world has definitely changed a bit. So with the recertification, there's no exam. Once you pass the exam with us, you do not have to sit for that again. And the recertification fee is $408 US if you're a participating organization member. It is very, very common that people have their employer pay for this. If you become a CFRE this year, right, 2021, you're going to recertify in 2024. And next year, 2022, you move to another job. When you're negotiating, you can say, look, I have this recertification fee coming up in 2024, and I want to have this built into my contract. It's very, very common for people to do. And you will fill out an online application. The requirements for recertification are 30 points for professional practice. So you might be thinking, okay, that means I need to work 30 months out of 36 months, right, in that 3-year cycle. If you're on maternity leave, medical leave, something where you are not working for longer than 6 months, you can contact our office and we'll be really glad to work with you on that. So nobody is going to lose their CFRE over maternity leave or medical leave. We have 40 points in professional performance. You do need to keep raising funds, right? And we have a 45-point requirement for education. So essentially 15 hours a year if you want to break it down that way, which most people find to be quite manageable. So before we do our final Q&A, I'll just talk a little bit about next steps. If you haven't yet started your application, go ahead. There's no risk, right? It's completely free to begin it. And I would encourage you to just log as much information as you can. As you attend various webinars, conferences, trainings, add them straight away so that you don't miss out on any of your points. And speak to your boss about supporting your CFRE journey. We have a survey that found 52% of people had their employer contribute to part or all of the initial certification fee, which is great to see. All right, so with that, Marina, do we have any lingering questions?
We do have a few lingering questions, Ashley. So first of all, again, going back to education, for degrees and certificates, does that just go back the 5 years that you were talking about, or is that kind of forever?
So the certificates, that's what's going to be dependent most likely on the 5 years. The academic degrees, that's any year, any major. So if you have a degree from the 90s, the 80s, you know, the early aughts, that's totally fine.
Perfect. And is there a maximum amount of points earned for professional practice? So I think that the question is like relating to if it's 1 point per month, then 6 years being employed would be like 72 points. Does that, are there maximums on that?
No, it's just the minimum. So we're looking at the last 5 years. So essentially, you know, that would be looking at 60 points for your maximum, but you just need the 36 points to qualify.
Perfect. And can you take the exam before you've completed all of the qualifications for application, such as the performance section or the professional practice section?
So unfortunately, you cannot. The application has to be approved before you can sit for your exam. So all of those items will need to be complete.
Great. And can you just speak again to, so once the application submission has been submitted, then can they sign up for the test right away, or do they need to wait for an approval period?
So you will need to wait for your application to be approved. It usually takes 2 to 3 business days, so it really won't be long. And once your application is approved, we will send you an email with all of the instructions for how to schedule your exam.
Excellent. And maybe you could just go back and run through the cost once more, Ashley, because we had a few questions about that.
Yeah, so for initial certification, if you are a member of a participating organization, so AFP, AHP, CAGP, CGP, there are a whole host of them, NACDO, you know, all of those ones that you've probably seen in the sector. If you're a member of one of those, the fee is $700 US. If you are not a member of a participating organization, the fee is $75 US.
Great. And we had a wonderful tip from someone who suggested also when you're looking at those study guides and the recommended reading material to check out your local library, because apparently the book that you were recommending, Ashley, is available at the Ottawa Public Library. So there's another hot tip for everyone. Can you speak again, Ashley, to recertification and how that works, and what folks will need to do once they've gone through the initial certification?
Yeah, so as soon as your application is, as soon as you become a CFRE, you will be able to start logging items into your online recertification account, right? Or application, I should say. So this is where you're going to need the professional practice, professional performance, and education again. So most people, they just go in as soon as they attend education, they put it in there. The professional performance, I think people probably tend to do close to that 3-year mark, right? Because they're kind of looking over those 3 years for the dollar amount. And the professional practice, like I said, that's you need to be working 2.5 out of those 3 years. And if you have an extenuating circumstance about why you have not been able to do that, our team is very happy to work with you.
Fantastic. And perhaps you could just indicate, Ashley, where folks can go for more information. Like I know you were mentioning talking with the certification team about, you know, certain college certificates and such.
Sure thing. So this email address on your screen, succeed@cfre.org, is directly to our certification team. So you can send them any questions that you have. They're very responsive. This isn't one of those inboxes that's a black hole and you'll never hear from someone again. They are very, very on it, and they will be happy to get you the information that you need.
Wonderful. So if you've attended a webinar or a conference or something and you're just not sure if that's going to be part of it, or we've had questions about job training conferences, things like that, you can reach out to that email address and they'll be able to assist.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Ashley, can you speak to whether or not and being an executive director at a nonprofit would count as professional practice?
Yeah, so if you're essentially overseeing the fundraising department, right, because as the ED, their success is tied to you, then that would qualify. One thing I should have said is that fundraising is a team sport, and we know that. If you send out a direct mail campaign, right, and it brings in $400,000, there's no way to say, well, you know, Luis brought in 50,000 of that and Sharon brought in 28,000 of that, right? So you would claim the funds if you were on that team that worked on the DM campaign. Same thing for, let's say, a fundraising event, like a gala, a fun run, right? The funds that have been brought in, you don't have to parse out and think, well, what dollars of those are mine and what dollars are someone else's, right? Because fundraising is a team sport.
Well, that's great, because that leads into my next question, which was about whether or not it's the dollars personally raised or as a department. So what you're saying is for applicable things, it would be department, and then I'm guessing for things perhaps such as major gifts or things like that, it would be a little bit more personal. Right,
exactly. So let's say, for instance, you work in fundraising events and your gifts and wills person lands $1 million bequest, right? You're not going to be able to count that because that's not your team. That wouldn't have been your project, right? So from that aspect, there might be things in the department that don't count, but the projects that you're working on with other teammates that bring in funds, then yes, that's going to qualify.
Wonderful. So Ashley, I think we're going to call it there because I know we're coming up on the hour. I just wanted to, turn it back over to you if you have any further comments or further directions, for folks before we wrap up.
Yeah, sure thing. So go ahead and start your application. Definitely, even if you're on the fence about it, there's no harm in beginning it and starting to log your information. Your future self will thank you that all of those details are there.
That's great advice, Ashley. Thank you so much. Just want to thank you again for a great presentation running through the whole program. It's just great to see how all of this works in practice so that everyone has a chance to get a feel for the program before application. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before we finish up, I just want to remind everyone that you will receive a follow-up email later today with a link to the webinar recording, so please feel free to share that link with your colleagues. It is publicly available. The email will also include a survey link that you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar, and we'll be sure to pass that along to Ashley as well if you have any comments for her. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you for joining us today. We do have a lot of exciting events coming up over the next few months that I'd like to tell you about, including our first annual Charity Village Conference and Awards, which will take place virtually on November 3rd. So award nominations are now open. We have categories related to workplace mental health, diversity, equity, and inclusion, fundraising, and staff and volunteer impact. And we'll include information in the follow-up emails you get later today so you can take a look and go ahead and make a nomination. I'd also like to encourage you to check out charityvillage.com/webinars for our upcoming webinars, including our September 23rd session on donor stewardship tools for staff, volunteers, and board members. That might be a really good one for everyone on the call today to check out. Thanks again for participating in today's webinar. I wish all of you a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.